When I think back on all the fears when I was pregnant, all of them dismissed except for one. The only test the state mandated was genetic. Looking for that extra chromosome.
Hello and welcome to the If We Knew Then podcast. I'm Steven Sachs.
And I'm Lori Sachs.
We're in the mid of our IEP. We did one session. It carried over to our second session, which we just had. We thought it would be the end. We just scheduled a third session. So we're in the middle of our IEP.
We infamously have
We've said that before
long
too.
IEPs. I think our last year we sat for a total of 21 hours over 3 full days. So really 12 hours, we're getting off easy if it only goes 12 hours, seeing that last year it was 21. But these are Zoom hours.
Yes, which seems like they could be more efficient. But what we saw in this yesterday, we saw in our second session was something we had never seen before. We had finished our everyone going through in our team saying what they need to say, setting the goals.
We finished the team reports.
Yeah, and then we got
to the part where they go over placement.
right.
And here's one thing to share is they shouldn't be changing your placement. So if they try to change your placement, you tell them no. They can't change your placement mid-COVID. So that's something that we want to share, because I got to tell you that even though we were prepared and we had a lawyer there was still a moment when we approached that part of our IEP where I got a little nervous listening to the way they were talking and the words they were using, that they were going to try to pull one over on us. So there's a new section. What is it called?
Section K.
Section
This is
K.
LAUSD, Los Angeles School District.
Right. We are in the LAUSD, but there's probably something in the different school districts. They might be very similar. This might be something that different districts do, and that's why we want to share it. And it might be called a different letter, but this was Section K, and you know, when you're in your IEP, I think it's super important to listen and to be present, not just hear them, but really listen, because you can tell when something's coming by the way they talk.
Oh, there were a lot of signs.
Yeah, there's like the tones, and even on Zoom, and very Brady Bunch-esque kind of
look.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, should we talk about K? Oh, K, yeah, let's talk about Section K. And I thought it was funny, so I was like, ooh, what's Section K? I do try to bring a little bit of levity because, you know, honestly, it's my time and I'm sitting there for 3 hours. So although I'm very serious and very prepared, if there's a moment of levity, these are, you know, for the majority, it's people on our team that we have a relationship with, and I really don't enjoy. I enjoy it even less when it's so heavy and burdened. So I've been known to have a little bit of levity, and some of that levity comes honestly when telling stories to get off track. When they were talking about Liam being non-compliant or being able to stop an activity that he liked to transition, and one thing I always keep in mind is sometimes the bar they put up for Liam is higher than the bar that any typical student, I know any bar that Sophia had to rise to. She was given so much more leeway to make mistakes and to learn and to grow. But I find sometimes the conversations that happen in these IEPs are so stringent that I have to bring it back and remind them what we're talking about, and that I can go into a classroom any given day and see the behaviors in a multitude of students that don't have IEPs, and it's not a big deal. But my son shouldn't be held to some different bar than his peers. Just like he's allowed an education with his peers, he should be given the same allowances. And I really believe that. So I did make I brought a little levity in comparing, you know, the Lakers. The Lakers just won, and I made a comparison when they were trying to hold the bar up to say, well, I can guarantee that if I went to the principal's house when he was watching the Lakers last night and just turned off the TV, I think I'd get some non-compliant behavior.
For that transition, because they were talking about transitions.
And I think sometimes, honestly, people need to be reminded that we're talking about a human being. And
yeah, because they laughed and it was, the point got across.
Yeah, that helps me when I'm parenting, just, you know, as parents, Stephen and I, when we're changing. It took us a while to remember, like, oh, you can't just say, all right, we're done. You need to give people a heads up. I need a heads up that we're moving on to something else. I need a heads up that you're going to change Runaway Bride. turn off When Harry Met Sally. I'm gonna need a heads up. I want to watch my movie, and if you take it away mid without any warning, I'm gonna get a little peeved. So I think that's, for me, it's really important to always keep that conversation alive, that we're not just talking about goals or PLPs. We're talking about a human and human behavior, and we're all humans, and these are not behaviors that are foreign to any 10-year-old.
Correct.
So back to K.
Yeah. After the levity came
You
K.
hear, like, we get to K, and you just hear it's almost the same tone that I take when I'm going to try to trick my kids into eating vegetables. Hey, you know what we're going to do now?
Right.
I'm telling you, it wasn't far from that. So that makes my ears perk up to go, I think there's going to be a show going on right now. And they pull up the screen and they say, well, all we need you to do is sign right here.
Well,
Go ahead.
no, they pull up the screen and they said, we're going to share the screen so mom and dad get a little look at what we're doing. And I was like, what? This has
Not
never happened before, even
before.
without a Zoom. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, okay, mom and dad are going to see, so okay. And we're assuming every one of these other people have been in these Zoom IEPs already, which is true. Everyone's done multiple of them, all of our OT and PT and representative from the district and the principal, and they had done multiple of these, so they knew it was coming. In fact, our attorney probably knew it was coming.
I don't know. No, she said it was new too. She might have known it was coming, but she said she knew it was new as well.
Well, my ears perked up too, and
plus, when they call you mom and dad, when you've known them for 6 years and they know your name, and they've also been calling you Lori and Steven or Mr. and Mrs. Sox for hours of the Zoom. For 6 hours now, they've been calling you.
And so they pull up a form
for mom and dad.
For mom and dad that you can check off a couple of spots, and they just
we're just going to check these two right
quickly
here.
check two things off the top. So
it said sign here.
Because Liam gets pulled out of it has, the way it was presented to us, has services where some are push in, but some are pull out, and they said and we've decided that is best for Liam to pull him out. Then I'm going to check this box to say that because he's pulled out of the classroom, he will then not.
We're going to paraphrase because we don't know the words.
The paraphrase is he would leave class and then not get the full curriculum of the classroom. And whenever we hear that, like full curriculum, you're like, curriculum.
That word makes us, because whenever they're talking about curriculum, they're talking about pulling them off curriculum.
Yeah, doing an alternate curriculum.
And then so she went to the second one and she said, and then this one right here, we're going to check off because it says while he is in those services, he is going to, and I'm going to paraphrase, not be taught by a professional teacher.
Yeah, it was
educator. Not receive
instruction from a high qualified teacher.
I respect teachers that work hard, and we have had some really great teachers out there that actually care about educating our son and create an inclusive environment. But for the most part,
teachers.
Yeah,
wonderful
for the
teachers.
most part, though, we experience a lot of either they don't have the knowledge of what's in the IEP, or that it's even a legal binding document that they're supposed to follow, or that they're the ones that are supposed to follow it. There's a big gap between an IEP and people understanding who is supposed to implement that. And that's why a lot of the times I end up picking up the ball, because people don't think it's their responsibility. And honestly, I don't have time to really care about making people know what their responsibility is. And if I can be a part of it to where I create a little bit of ease, it helps me. So I'll make a schedule. I'll make sure things are on course. We'll sit next to Liam during distance learning and teach him. We don't have a problem with that. The problem that I've always had is then when he has a consequence for the fact that they're not doing their job, that then he has a consequence. And that's something that we just don't abide to, because it shouldn't be.
But to be clear, we've had several teachers that we really like that have been great. And the ones that we feel aren't ones we would recommend for IEPs, many of them are held in such a regard for their ability to teach typical kids in their typical classroom. They're fantastic teachers. It's about adapting to supports and
people who learn differently,
and people that learn differently, and IEPs, and reading those and learn about assessments and learning and doing those things. And that's where we find there is and could be a bridge that needs to be crossed.
There's a gap and a need for education. There's a need for training. So we read both of these, and this is what I encourage you to do. Because right away I was like, no, I'm not signing that, because I could read the sentence, and the sentence said, if you don't educate my son, I'm now saying that's okay.
Or if he doesn't get the curriculum, you've just checked off that you said he wasn't going to get the entire curriculum.
Right. So but you don't sign it. Here, I'm going to tell you
No.
right now, do not sign it. It is not lawful. They cannot tell you they are not going to educate your child. So don't sign it. So Stephen immediately, and I think it was something like when your gut goes, hey, that's not right. And he said, yeah,
You know what
go
I
ahead.
thought? I was like, why would I put this here if I was the school district? Why would I do that?
And why would you do that, Stephen?
Well, I said, so this is some way of covering the district's liability?
And what did they said, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
It was in that
I mean,
in that
I'm
respect, it
happy
was
for the honesty.
yeah, in that respect, it was probably one of the most honest
Yes.
IEPs, because we did experience on it. Like people, I don't
think
know
they
what
were
was
distraught
different.
by it as well,
I think
because
they're
they were like,
distraught because
oh, yes. And so we debated and explained fully why we didn't think each one. And as we were saying it, you could see the cursor going over to the little, because where she's sharing the screen, and you could see the cursor going to that dot that she had just checked off, and she unclicked it. And we were like, okay, well, there's one down, one to go. And then we talked about that one, and yeah, that cursor went right over there and clicked it off.
And honestly, I think teachers want to teach, and I think the pandemic has been hard on everyone. And I identify that it's a challenge, and identify that people had to relearn some jobs. So I do think that I think that's why I really enjoyed this IEP, although it was very taxing and challenging, is that there was actually honesty. And I feel like most of the other IEPs we've ever sat in, they've said stuff and then tried to cover or done things that are illegal, and tried to make excuses for it, thinking we wouldn't know. And for the first time, we actually received honest answers. And the first one really was when you asked if it was a liability, and they went, yeah. And so I said, so we're going to uncheck those boxes, and we're not going to sign. And this is what I'm going to tell you not to sign them, because one, they have to educate your child, and they can't not give them the curriculum. So what I said, instead of checking that box, what I want written into the IEP is that any curriculum that Liam misses is to be given to Liam and the parent to be made up with the accommodation, because he has the accommodation of extra time. So make sure that's in your IEP, that, shorter assignments, extra time, that it will be able to be made up with his accommodation of extra time. And I want it in the IEP. So now I not only am not going to check your box, but now to make sure that you don't try to come back and say that he didn't get educated because he was in a service. Now I want it written in the IEP. And I said that, and you can say that. You have a voice. I said it nicely. I explained to myself why, but you have a voice, so please use it. And you have the right to say that, and you have the right to ask for that accommodation, and you have the right not to sign as long as those boxes are checked, because it's unlawful.
So then after all that's put in the IEP, what's going to happen is, yes, he's going to have these services where he's pulled out. And at that time, those assignments are accrued and organized for him to take home. And then he could do that at home over the weekend, later that day, however you do it, you turn it in later, and accompanied by the fact that he's or she is allowed to bring the assignments in a little bit later, or have a little bit more time, then everything's done. He or she did not miss really anything in the classroom. All assignments were done properly to the accommodation.
Right. And you ask for that accommodation. It's a basic, I'm sure everybody already has that, but if you don't, please ask for the accommodation and more time. And make sure it's written in your IEP, and don't be afraid to ask for that. And I did point out that this is something that should have been happening since the beginning of Liam's education, that he should have been given the assignments. And I also pointed out that last year, one of the things that I discovered was that he had been getting bad grades because when he would miss work because they were pulling him out, they wouldn't give him the work to make up. They wouldn't send it home. They wouldn't give it to him at all. So then he was failing 2 different subjects.
Yeah, with incompletes.
Right. Then it reflects poorly on him, and then they have grounds to try to pull him off curriculum or put him into a special day class or a different placement or whatever, because they say that he can't do the work. Well, he can with his accommodations. And then I did also remind them that that happening was a violation of the implementation of his IEP, and then kindly said, but that's a different story. But we can go into that if you want. And they didn't want to, which was nice. So the second thing to check off was about the teacher not teaching him. And then
Or highly
highly
qualified.
Well, if you have resource, or I'm not sure what they call it everywhere else, but here it's called resource. And if you have a resource teacher that supports your child in their academics,
They may pull he or she out of class
or push in.
and instruct that student. Now, the pull out is the main thing. They're going to pull out and instruct. So that's a highly qualified teacher as well, the resource teacher.
So this was my hope. My hope was to take the things that were challenges and turn them into good things for us. And so those two things were challenges, right? So when they say that he's not going to be taught by a highly qualified teacher, we point out that he should be, because he has a resource teacher who is highly qualified. And then also, sometimes when you're getting services, they will substitute the highly qualified teacher with an assistant. That's illegal.
That's not a highly qualified.
That's not a highly qualified therapist implementing your services. So know that. I don't know how it works for everyone. So that was a really great time.
A door was opened
to say, and let's go ahead and make a note in the IEP, since this has been a problem, because it has been a reoccurring problem, but you won't know it's a problem unless you ask for your service logs. And when you ask for your service logs, whoever did that service has to sign in. And so you will get a list of how many services were implemented by the provider and how many were implemented by their assistant. And you might be shocked to see how much actual instruction is coming from the therapist or the supporter or the resource. So it's a really good thing to know. It's just really a really great thing to know, so you know what's going on.
And it's possible you may enjoy the services you're getting from that assistant.
Right.
That's possible.
But they're not supposed to have the assistant. Is
You're
not supposed to be implemented. And that was a huge thing. That's something that they fell back on during quarantine, was they said, oh, well, we can't do Zoom with them because they're not a qualified therapist. Okay, well, isn't this the same person who you tried to...
Oh, they couldn't do a Zoom therapy.
Remember that? So this is a conversation, and this is just, even if you never act on it, it's information to just know. The person who's supposed to be implementing your services is the actual provider, not the aide. So that is information. Put it in your pocket and save it in case it comes up. And that's the law. That's it. That's the rule. So it was a really good time to address that and to say, let's please put this in the IEP, because it's happened so many times where it will start off, we'll get everything clear. And then as the year goes, IEP season comes and those providers get really busy and bogged down. And all of a sudden you start to notice that somebody else, maybe even someone who doesn't know your child, maybe a substitute teacher. We've had substitute teachers who are not providers do that. So you just want to stay on top of it, and you don't have to. Honestly, if it's not a problem for you, you choose your battles. But this is just information that I want every parent to know, because knowledge, just knowing, is powerful, and it's a strength, and it's a tool that you can use. And a lot of times they don't try to pull the wool over your eyes if you actually know the rule. And you can actually look up on your district's website too, and I'm sure it's there. And so if you even wanted to cite, if you didn't have a lawyer, which we recommend, but if you didn't have a lawyer, you might even be able to cite the exact words from the district's website. And I guarantee if you can do that, they're going to perk up and listen, because they know that you've armed yourself with the knowledge.
Well, it was admitted too that this Section K is new. And we knew it was because we had never seen it before. At first I was thinking maybe we just hadn't seen it because this is a Zoom IEP and where maybe there's some additional things that they need to do. But yeah, this is something they're probably going to try to implement in their IEPs, even once we get back to in-person IEPs. But it's a new thing. So we really wanted to spread that word, because it's probably have not been.
I wonder how many people have signed up on it, right?
Well, I mean, it sounds, the way it's presented, as so many things can be, it sounds like, oh, okay, I'll check that if you're trusting, the group that's on in your team.
That ship sailed long ago.
I always bring it back to the car salesman. I remember when we bought the Civic, And we went through this whole 8 hours of negotiating, and I mean, I $200 off here, $300 off there, throw in some window tinting, and then they're like, okay, great, now we're gonna go to the financing, and they want to sell me on the insurance, like an extended warranty. I'm like, no, I don't want that. I just don't. And they go, it's $1,100. It's a great deal. I was like, I don't want it. I mean, we just went through this whole thing, and he goes, oh, and he just looked at me like, oh, you, what are you thinking? This is not a smart thing you're about to do. So he goes, okay, you know what? All right, I can do it for $700. And I'm going, no, I don't want it. I don't want to do it. Can you get me out of here? Like, I've got the car and I want at the price. We got it. He rolled his eyes again, got up, talked to his manager. I'm going, this is crazy. He comes back and goes, I just talked to my manager. I go, listen, I don't want it. And he goes, I'm going to give it to you at cost. And I go, I'm telling you, I don't want it. And he goes, no, I'm going to give it to you at cost. And then I'm going to take that cost off of your sticker price. So it's not going to cost you anything. I have a quota. I have to sell this a certain more to get some kind of rebate from Honda. And he just needed the numbers.
A Honda dealership.
He just needed the quota. And so you're trusting this person. They're telling you information, making it roll in their eyes, making you think that you're doing the wrong thing. And yet you dive in and realize, no.
They're good.
They're good. They're going to present it to you in a way that makes you feel stupid if you don't check that box.
And you know what? What's sad is this is the education system, and this is our IEP, and this is our district. And what makes it even worse is that it's during a pandemic. So they're doing this to parents and children during such a highly stressful time already. This is what they do normally, but now they're doing it more and in a pandemic, which shame on you. Shame on you, LAUSD. Shame on you for any school district that does that. It's
shameful that in that Zoom you may have 8, 10, 12 boxes of people there, and you'll see yourself, and it's very possible that you're the one out of that whole group that doesn't have a job because of this pandemic. You're the one stressing. You're the one that doesn't have an income. You're the one that's just trying to get stuff done for your
trying
kid.
to educate your son or daughter, trying to educate your child, doing their job.
It's more than frustrating. It's more than frustrating to think how many parents have probably been taken advantage of and are up against a rock and a hard place and just go, okay. I mean, it's gonna come on. How strong can you be, right, guys? So especially if you don't have the knowledge, and that's what they're banking on, that you don't know these things, and that's why we do this
now
podcast.
You do. Now you have at least those little bits of information. And there was one other thing that, so when you have a limited time, probably a window given. When we started our IEP, they started to pass around the sign-in sheet that's digital and they're taking too long. Stop them, which is what we did, or our lawyer did, and say, can we please not waste the time, and can the rest of the people in the Zoom do this on a break or beforehand? Or with this information, before you go into your IEP, make a little note and send it. So that way you don't waste any of your time, because we had a limited amount of time. And now we're going in for a third session. So every minute counts.
And that's like 15 minutes at least.
At least.
And because they're bringing up the document, you get to hand over the
it's
permission
a whole
to you
thing.
to sign
and
it
shouldn't take away your time, because your time, and especially if you have a lawyer, you're paying for that time, and don't let them impede upon your process and time. Another thing they did was the person from the district that we had this whole conversation with for over 3 hours 3 weeks ago was gone, and it was a new person. And immediately, to me, it's a game, and they play games. And so, I had to resettle and not be unnerved by the fact that now they're like switching people out, because you just had this whole IEP where we explained everything. And now hopefully you guys go in, you have a great IEP, you get what you need for your child, and you're done in one sitting. But for us, like, I can now look around and see where the game is, and it shouldn't be a game. So I'm not willing to participate.
Yeah, we in our first session, the district representative told us a hard no on something that we felt really strongly about, and we went on and on about it, and then it was presented to us that we just need to move on because we're just in a stalemate, and this is just going to slow things down. So we said, let's put it behind us, and we'll come back to it. So we didn't come back to it because we got to the end of that session. Our day was done. Well, this second session, we're expecting, that representative will be back. Maybe she had a chance to think about where we're at. No, there was someone else, and this person was not resisting. So it made me think yeah, it's a game.
Yeah.
It's a way I would match up a game. I would have the
Good cop,
heavy
bad cop.
come in, and say no.
We
and-
took improv, people. We know all about good cop, bad cop, okay?
Yes.
We had to do weeks of good cop, bad cop,
You
okay?
come in, you say no, hard no, hard no.
And the other guy's like, well,
Well, let's think about
hey,
it.
don't be so rough on him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I get you something to drink? Yeah, we know the game.
Yeah, so good cop comes in second. So then you have a hero. You have a hero to attach to. You have this good cop that you've just attached yourself to, making the district look great. And you can then have an enemy. You can say, oh, that last person, oh, that bad cop was terrible, right? So you have a place to direct your frustration and anger, and it's not in the Zoom meeting. They've made it so that now the Zoom meeting is all good directed energy, which can bring your guard down, and it's a strategy.
So it's a game. And it's unfortunate that it's a game. So this is what I say. Try not to bring emotions into it. Try to just have something that you can take notes on. So if something comes up, you can talk about it. Be present in the moment. Try to breathe through things. Really listen to everything that's being said. And do not be afraid to stop them. Do not be afraid to correct them because it's being recorded, right? And then you request a copy of that recording beforehand. Say, I want an audio recording of it, because in Zoom it's a little different. Just make sure that you have it on the record that you're requesting the audio recording. If you have a lawyer, they're going to record it for you. And if you have the means to, the ability to, then you can record it, I guess, on your phone, just so you have all the notes, because you might need to use them if you have to go downtown and fight the district. So be present and listen and stop them. I cannot tell you how many times they tried to readjust what I had just said, and I stopped and I said, I want to be perfectly clear. This is the situation that happened. Or we had someone say, well, that happened a year and a half ago and I wasn't there. So, I've been doing a great job. So we're just going to go forward. And I stopped and I said, I'm going to make this clear. No, that's not how it works. You are doing a great job, but this is something that was supposed to be corrected and nobody did it. And then there was a pandemic. So we're not going to do that. And please use your voice. You get better if you use your nice voice, but use your voice to speak up, because you're speaking up for your child. And don't be afraid to. Do not be afraid to say, you are wrong. This is the situation. Tell me where you got that information. Please put that in writing for me. You use all of these things like any other conversation that you would have with any other adult in your life or any other human in your life, because they don't have the power that they pretend to have, because there are laws that support us and protect us, and we need to know those laws, and we need to speak up, and that's the way that we make a change. And when you start speaking up, a lot of times it changes right there in the room. I do try to go into it with a compassionate, empathetic heart, but I have learned not to bring emotion in with me, and just to bring the facts and to really, really hear what's being said and to stop. And I stop. I don't wait until the end of a conversation. I will say, well, I wait till there's a break. I don't talk over people, but I make a little note on my laptop, and I have a note open the whole time, and I take little notes. And then when that person's done and they go, Mr. and Mrs. Sox, do you have any questions? I will go note by note and have them answer that if something's inappropriate or inaccurate or something that I just want to get on the record. Okay, here's another thing. Compensatory services, they owe you them. If they didn't provide services, they owe you those services. A little tidbit, the schools were open, even though you weren't in the school, because they'll say, well, the schools were closed. They were not closed.
This is in March or whatever, after the pandemic.
Right, they owe you compensatory if you have services that they did not provide. And this was a really great little thing that came from our lawyer, was the schools were open, because they'll say, well, the schools were closed. That's a little key phrase that they use. Schools were closed, so we don't have to. They weren't closed. I'm gonna say that one more time. Schools were not closed. They were open. They need to provide compensatory services for any services you missed.
Yeah, we did distant learning the whole time.
Learning.
That's not
we did
closed.
They were not closed. So your school, most likely, unless it's a private school, accepted funding. If they then say they are not going to provide the services, that is unlawful. That is
embezzlement.
So they do owe you those services. The school was open. Any services that they didn't give you, they owe you, because unless it's a private school, they receive monies and grants to provide those services.
Right. State and federal monies.
Yep. So I want you to put that in your pocket because I don't like being lied to. And I don't like my friends being lied to. And I don't like that they do it to parents of children with IEPs who need supports and who are going through enough on any given Monday, not to mention how that is compacted during the pandemic and they are taking advantage of us. And I don't like it, and it's unlawful, and we'd like it to stop. And that's why we're sharing our information with you. Now we're going to have more information
After our third go around.
and hopefully it will be about the end of our IEP.
Yes.
But I just want to share that with you. I will share with you that I was nervous. I will share that when they got to the part about placement, my throat got tight and my stomach dropped like it always does because it's a feeling of helplessness. Because also I knew that if they tried that, the law is there's a bunch of laws that protect you about having to provide assessments, it's a whole assessment process before that they can change your child's placement, and they cannot do it in the pandemic. So I knew that, but I also knew that if they did try to change the placement, that I might have to fight for it. And sometimes I get tired of fighting. So we are with every single one of you when you step into your IEP. Load yourself with knowledge. If you can, get a lawyer, an advocate, someone who knows the law to sit in that room, because then it also helps. It helps if you stay the peaceful one and not emotional, to have your lawyer say, you know, that's against the law. You know, you can't do that. And, you know, on the outside, I don't think I would ever believe that, well, you're going in to set up a plan for Liam, and you actually have to have a lawyer tell the school and stop the school from doing things that are illegal. That's a shame. It's a shame, and it shouldn't happen. I'm trusting in the evolution of all good things that there will come a day that does not happen. But until that day comes, please bring with you what you need. Educate yourself on the laws. Go to IDEA. Go to your district's website, and there's lots of information out there. So look up special education. Make sure you are ready and you have with you the tools that you need to have a successful IEP. So we will talk to you again after our conclusion and share in hopes to giving you some of our experience that it may help you to have a successful IEP and receive all the supports that your child needs to access their curriculum.
Good luck to you. Any questions, drop us a line in our inbox. Go to our website, ifweknewthen.com. You can send us a message, and we'll get back to you.
We don't know everything, but we will try really hard to find an answer for you if we don't know the answer. I promise you that.
Thank you.
Good luck, friends.
Please follow us on Twitter at ifweknewthenpod, and you can drop us a line on our Facebook page at ifweknewthenpod. Or visit our website, ifweknewthen.com, to send us an email with questions and comments. And you can join our mailing list there and get alerts of future podcast episodes. All these links will be added to this episode's show notes. Thank you again, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of If We Knew Then.